The afternoon sun painted the streets in hues of gold, casting long shadows as Ethan made his way home from school. Each day he walked the same route, his backpack slung over his shoulder, his mind lost in thought. But lately his thoughts had been consumed by a single image, the image of a girl. He saw her every day near the old bookstore, her long hair cascading down her shoulders like a silken waterfall. She always wore a simple blue dress, her eyes fixed on a book in her hands. Ethan didn't know her name, didn't even know if she attended the same school, but there was something about her quiet grace that drew him in. Every day he looked forward to their fleeting encounter, his heart skipping a beat as he passed her by. He longed to talk to her, to know her name, to hear her voice, but fear held him back, fear of rejection, fear of shattering the fragile image he had built in his mind. Days turned into weeks, each encounter fueling the flames of Ethan's unspoken affection. He found himself stealing glances at the girl whenever he could, memorizing the way she tucked a stray strand of hair behind her ear, the way her lips curved into a slight smile when she read something amusing. He started leaving his house earlier, adjusting his route slightly so he could walk past her more slowly. Sometimes their eyes would meet, and for a fleeting moment, Ethan would feel a spark of connection. A silent acknowledgement. He knew he couldn't stay silent forever. Ethan's heart ached to express his feelings, to tell her how special she was, how she had captivated his every thought, and so he decided to do something about it, something bold, something that spoke louder than words. The next day, Ethan woke up with a nervous flutter in his stomach. Today was the day he would finally talk to her. He carefully selected a single red rose from his mother's garden, its velvety petals symbolizing the passion burning in his heart. As he approached the bookstore, he saw her standing in her usual spot, lost in the pages of a book. His heart pounded in his chest as he drew closer, the rose clutched tightly in his sweaty hand. He stopped in front of her, mustering all his courage. "Excuse me," he stammered, his voice barely above a whisper. He extended the rose towards her, his hand trembling slightly. "This is for you." The girl looked up from her book, her eyes widening slightly as she saw Ethan standing before her, a rose in his outstretched hand. For a moment their eyes locked, and Ethan held his breath, anticipating her reaction, but her expression remained unchanged. She didn't smile, didn't speak, didn't even reach for the rose. She simply stared at him, a blank look on her face. Confusion washed over Ethan. Had he done something wrong? Was she not interested? He had poured his heart into this gesture, and yet her silence was deafening. Despite the initial confusion, Ethan refused to give up. He continued his daily routine, each day bringing the girl a fresh rose. Each day he hoped for a different reaction, a sign that she acknowledged his feelings. But her response remained the same. She would look at him with those same wide, unreadable eyes, accept the rose without a word, and continue reading her book. Ethan was starting to lose hope. Why did she accept the roses if she wasn't interested? Why wouldn't she at least say something? The silence was agonizing, leaving Ethan to grapple with a whirlwind of questions and doubts. Weeks turned into a month, and Ethan's patience began to wear thin. The silence that had once intrigued him now filled him with frustration. Why couldn't she just tell him what she was thinking? Why did she make him guess at every turn? One day, as he approached her with a rose in hand, a surge of anger welled up inside him. He was tired of the silence, tired of the unanswered questions. "Why won't you say anything?" he burst out, his voice echoing through the quiet street. "Don't you realize how much this hurts?" He threw the rose at her feet, its delicate petals scattering on the pavement. The girl flinched slightly as the rose landed at her feet, but her expression remained unchanged. She looked down at the flower, then back up at Ethan, her eyes filled with a mixture of sadness and confusion. Just then, another girl approached them, her brow furrowed in concern. "Ethan, what are you doing?" she asked, her voice sharp with disapproval. She won't even talk to me," Ethan sputtered, gesturing towards the girl in the blue dress. I don't understand," the other girl sighed, placing a comforting hand on Ethan's arm. "Ethan," she said gently, "she can't talk to you. She's deaf and mute." The world seemed to stop spinning. Ethan stared at the girl in the blue dress, his anger dissolving into a wave of shame and remorse. All this time he had misjudged her silence, mistaking it for indifference when in reality it was a barrier beyond her control. He thought back to her blank expressions, her wide eyes, the way she never reacted to his words. It all made sense now. The weight of his actions crashed down on him, the realization of his insensitivity leaving him breathless. How could he have been so blind, so selfish? He had yelled at her, accused her of being heartless, when all along she was carrying a burden he couldn't even begin to comprehend. The next day Ethan returned to the bookstore, a single red rose clutched tightly in his hand. This time, however, his heart was heavy with guilt and regret. He saw the girl in her usual spot and approached her slowly, his gaze fixed on his shoes. "I'm so sorry," he whispered, his voice choked with emotion. "I was so wrong. Please forgive me." He held out the rose, his hand trembling. This time the girl's face softened. A small smile touched her lips as she reached out and took the rose from his hand. Then she reached into her bag and pulled out a folded piece of paper, handing it to Ethan. It was a letter written in neat handwriting. As Ethan read the words, his heart swelled with a mix of relief and overwhelming love. The letter explained her condition, how she had been deaf and mute since birth. For the first time since they met, a genuine smile spread across her face, and in that moment Ethan knew that despite his mistakes, their silent love story was just beginning.